Welcome to your Frequency Shift podcast, hosted by human design and gene key specialist Karis and myself, Nick, a life strategist. We are your experts in navigating how to bring deep satisfaction, fulfillment, and helping you connect to the feeling of being alive in your business, body, and relationships. On this podcast, we dive into all things spirituality, reparenting, relationships, business, and personal growth hacks. We're at the end of the year. There are 2 months and a little bit left.
It's officially October.
It's officially October.
Almost the middle of October, actually.
Yeah, well, it is the middle of October, yeah. And I don't know about you, but I sometimes get to this part of the year and I look at the list of things that I still wanted to do or I put on the back burner, and it feels overwhelming.
Nick and I were having a conversation on how do we run this last leg of the race and get to the end of this year at the finish line feeling not just accomplished, but present and good. And here we are in this podcast to make the most of these last 2 months and avoid that feeling like you've missed out on achieving your goals.
So we have 2 months left. We're at the end of the year. What 5 practical steps can we take, you take, to get yourself from feeling discouraged, possibly guilty, frustrated, overwhelmed, to a place of I feel accomplished. I feel like I have done everything within my power to not only just end off the year on a better note, where I've ticked some of those pivotal boxes, but also set myself up for the following year, where I feel that I don't have to wait until the 1st of 2025 to actually get my mind, get my body, get my focus and attention in alignment with these goals. I can build the momentum now instead of waiting for a better time and procrastinating for this ideal period where I'll maybe feel a little bit better, or I'll feel more empowered, or there will be more space for me to do X, Y, and Z.
And it's interesting because you also have to, I think prepping yourself within these last 2 months sets you up for the best year of your life, essentially. So if you set yourself up for success now, it makes it a lot easier to be able to do those things. So where are you with your vision board on a personal note for this year?
Normally when I get to this part of the year, I do reflect on the goals that I had set in between December and January, and I do reflect on my goals from a macro down to a micro component, where I can just check in to see if I'm aligned or if this still feels like the right next step, and if those big goals are essentially what I want, because I find that as I do change and grow and expand throughout the year, and going through those ebbs and flows, I tend to change some of them, to be honest with you, and not the big ones, but there's a couple of things which actually don't maybe feel as important because it doesn't feel in alignment with me, versus others. So it's like a chopping and changing, which can be honestly rather frustrating from time to time, when you're looking at that and it's just like, wow, are you wanting to not follow through with this because you're getting in your head about it, or is this it just isn't part of the path? It was an idea. So that's normally the dance that I move through. So my approach this year specifically was, have 3 to 5 big tangible goals, and outcomes that I was pushing towards, and the focus was being at the end, being in this last part of the year and reflecting back and feeling the feelings and having the experience of having achieved those goals already. That feeling was something that I focused on bringing into my life on a day-to-day basis. And I suppose that's manifestation 101, like feeling as if it is here before it's actually here in this reality. So that's how I typically realign and maintain that intention throughout the year. So, yeah, and yourself?
I would say realistically, I've probably done 80% of what's been on my vision board, which is amazing. And the last two things that are left there are obviously the biggest things, but I'm so glad that those have shifted. But in terms of feeling very, oh, it's a big burp. But in terms of taking a moment to reflect and realign, I think that discernment, that's in building that sense of discernment and just leaning into that level of trust that you have with yourself is so important, especially at this leg of the year. And if you don't have that, obviously, then there's a place to start. So starting at the point where it's like, what is the spiritual and energetic aspect that comes into reviewing your goals and realigning yourself, because those are the things that's either going to make it easier or difficult in terms of, like you said, the law of attraction, all of those other things. So, like I said, I've been 80% there, and now it's at a point where I have to obviously reflect on the things that are left and realign and assess like whether these things are actually things that I still want to do or have come into fruition. So, like you said, it's taking a moment to reflect on the progress and celebrating all the things that you have done and acknowledge the things that have set you back without any judgment. So this is one of the practices. So we'll start with, firstly, reflect and realign, because this is a powerful opportunity to just look at where you need to shift your focus, especially when it comes to reviewing your desires and your goals. What happens is you create an emotional clarity and this energetic space for that final push. So when you reflect and realign, it's going into that spiritual and energetic and space and tapping into something that you align with, like the law of attraction, which focuses on the positive aspects of where you are now and shifting your vibration and your focus essentially to align to where you want to go. So for us right now, it's a thing of looking at the vision board, what's left, and being very practical. So writing down the top 3 priorities for the next 2 months, and these are the non-negotiables, and that's going to give you that sense of accomplishment. So for me, it was losing all the baby weight. That was a small goal. The big one was having a healthy baby and having an incredible birth and having a healthy pregnancy, which has happened. And now in the after space, it's feeling healthy and losing the baby weight in a way that is healthy and not going to compromise my milk supply and all of those things. And how that's going to happen is, in terms of the practical steps, is just being able to work out at least 3 times a week and making sure that I'm eating healthier, and automatically that thing is going to happen. And so whatever your goal is, I think just being practical about it in a way that's not going to put pressure on you, because if I have to think about, oh my gosh, here's all the things that I have to lose and I want to feel toned and all the things, then I'm going to feel this immense amount of pressure and not going to want to show up, versus just, all you need to do is show up to your workouts. All you need to do is love yourself enough to eat well, and those things are going to automatically happen. But yeah, so
the next step is to focus on the present moment, essentially embracing the power of now. So by releasing any attachment to any of these past failures or unachieved goals, it allows you to create a lot more space, and you begin to recognize that it's only in the present moment that you're able to create meaningful change. So this is normally a part of this specific process that I tend to struggle with, depending on how personally I may have taken some of those failures, because I am a perfectionist in nature. So from the emotional side of things, when you are able to let go of guilt and regret and shame about the things that you had yet to accomplish or actually action, what you can do is just focus on what you can do right now to feel aligned with those desires. So once you've realigned with what these outcomes are, by you getting very clear on what those new priorities are, or maybe you've adjusted the old ones, and you align with an actionable step, you can just focus on that. And from a practical component, you're just going to have to bring your awareness back to you're in the now. You're in the now. You're in the now. And when it wants to go back to the shame and the guilt, you're just bringing yourself back. Like, I've learned from this. That's why I'm busy doing this process. And that's allowing me to move forward with more intention, with more clarity, and essentially break those remaining goals into small, actionable steps. So this is where the practice of consistency starts to come in. So daily progress, tracking, and even just 15 minutes a day to start chipping away at these tasks, be it that it's personal, business, relationship-based, just bringing the awareness back to the present and actioning this makes a massive difference.
There's a reason why The Power of Now was a bestseller for so long, and why majority of teachers speak about being present and what a gift it brings you, which is most of us live with this in this dissociative state for majority of our lives, and then we're awake for these tiny moments, and then we think that that is life. And it's genuinely going at it from the perspective of these are the good old times that you're living from, and being very present in that you will only have this moment. And so finding ways to regulate. We also have a gift, our own gift. But finding ways to be able to have a regulated and dynamic nervous system to support being present is one of the biggest things that you can bring to the table of living your life in a way that feels healthy and whole, and so that you're able to be awake and present enough to be able to live it. And so we probably should have started off this podcast saying that you're probably going to need a journal with all of the questions and all the things that come up. But one of the things to embrace that power of now is also just to let go and release the charges that you're carrying that you might not even know that you're carrying. Nick and I did a powerful practice together a few weeks ago on just forgiving ourselves and forgiving other people for things that we still remember and our system still feels charges on. And it was so interesting because there were so many things there that I didn't even know that I still held a charge on. And what it did was it created space for things that I was like, oh, I actually forgot that I was wanting that, or that I didn't need to hold this in my space. So that is an important practice, I would say, for bringing yourself back into the alignment. Is it's clearing out that old crap, clearing out the clutter to make space for all the new things that should come into your space. So, and on a practical level, how it works is what you do is you write down the charge. So let's say
I feel like a failure because I couldn't spend as much time with my kids this year. Let's use that as an example.
Yeah, and then what do you do next?
So the next step is then sitting with that. Instead of avoiding the feeling, just sitting with that feeling and amplifying it in your body. So it might be a practice where you have to sit for, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, especially if it's really charged, and feeling it, allowing it to, just like imagine it's this wave of emotion that rushes over you, and it's going to peak, and then eventually it's going to start subsiding. And as it's doing that, you'll say to yourself, I forgive you, I love you, I honor you, and I'm sorry. And it's just a practice of, doing this with every single charge. You can write a whole list. I'd actually invite you to sit and do about 20 to 30 of these. And you can also use the term Ho'oponopono as well, which encompasses that. And just repeating that as a mantra as once you've felt the peak and it's subsiding, you're doing that, you close your eyes and you can, take both your hands, put them on your chest, and then just rinse and repeat this process. And what you're doing is you're creating more space within your nervous system, your energetic system, and you can start aligning your attention with the present moment.
The third one is visualize your success with energetic action. So it is using that practice of visualization, but combined with the inspired action. And that is the thing that makes the massive shifts. So it is literally seeing yourself, like Nick said, at the end of December, having achieved the most important goals on your vision list. And what does that version of you look and feel like? What does that version of you do? What does she sound like? What is the things that she's saying to herself and about herself? And how is she behaving towards other people? Like those type of things.
How does she stand? How is she dressing? What perfumes does she have on her system? Where is she?
It's that multi-sensory approach
Yes, you want to tap into your olfactory senses, your auditory senses. You want to tap into what you might be eating at that moment in time, like just everything, the smell, the feeling. Maybe there's someone that you're sharing the news with, and you're saying, "Hey, this is what I just achieved X, Y, and Z." Or
who are you calling? Who's the first person
yes,
that you'll be telling to?
Yes. And the important part is the level of excitement in your system, because your mind is not going to know the difference between that visualization and you firing up your entire system as if that reality is true in this moment versus it actually being true in this moment. It's the same thing.
And that is what we call, it's a practice called scripting. And also, if you're looking at manifestation teachers who teach more on this, I would look at Neville Goddard. He teaches so much about the acting as if, but embodiment is such an important and empowering process, and it's more on the notion of feeling good in where you are and what you have.
This is actually a missing link for so many high performers or very logic-driven individuals that are focused on systems. And I find that they find it very difficult to tap into the feeling because they're so dissociated, as you mentioned before. And everything has to be very practical. And I think that has had its merit over a long period of time, but there's a different way of playing this game of life.
But that's why, it's about the practical, which is the energy, the action.
Yes.
But then the other aspect of it, which is the visualizing and seeing that success before it happens.
Yes.
So it is essentially seeing how much you actually believe and trust yourself and being your own cheerleader.
With the actions that you're taking.
Exactly.
Otherwise, your actions have no meaning.
Yeah.
No weight, essentially. So from a practical standpoint, on a day-to-day basis, I'd actually start off with writing out what that version of you is experiencing end of December, with you having had achieved those goals. You're maybe at a restaurant, or you're giving a dear friend or parent a call, or your partner a call, or maybe they're there and you're just expressing to them like how grateful you are and how much you appreciate having achieved these things, and you feel so good and you feel so excited and expansive and you're tapped in, tuned in, turned on, you feel absolutely great. And then taking that, whatever you've written there, and focusing on doing this on a day-to-day basis. So tuning into that outcome and then following the visualization practice, taking a tangible action. So one of the key components to really achieving big goals is reverse engineering them. And it's a basic process, but let's say that's the outcome. How did I get to that outcome? Yeah. And that's when you can start breaking down tangible small steps that you can start taking from this moment that will allow you to lead up to that moment. Yes.
So a practice that I like to do, and it literally takes 10 seconds. If you don't have 10 minutes in the day, or you're finding it difficult to find those few minutes, which I have been now that we have 3 kids and all of the complexities of what building and living a life like that looks like. I like to do it quickly in the morning. So first thing when I wake up, and first thing, and and last thing when just before I go to sleep, because I know that my brain is in a super receptive state and my subconscious is open, and this is the best space and the most potent and most powerful way for me to actually start reprogramming those subconscious beliefs or any resistance that I have to whatever it is that I have on that vision board. So number 4 is eliminating distractions and then focusing on what the impact is of those goals.
At the end of the day, distractions take away both your time and your energy. So by prioritizing activities that have the greatest impact, think of it as like needle movers, things that are going to really get things going and start creating momentum. That's where your focus needs to go. And I find that what we typically do is we don't look at those needle movers because there's normally friction, a lot of resistance. And sometimes we look at them and we're like, how the hell am I actually going to get this to move and get this going? And that's normally the best activity to start with, because it is big, it is juicy, it is sitting there. And if you move it, you know something's going to change. You will be met. If you move it, you will be met. If you take that action, you will be met. If you align with that version of self, you will be met. So look at the activities. So you might have some of these goals now mapped out. You might be now sitting in a position where you've got some smaller tangible tasks, but which one of those tasks are like, this is actually like really big. So for example, you might say, I want to start a podcast. That might be one of your goals that you had at the beginning of the year. Now you're like, well, I want to start a podcast. I need to get this mic. I need to do this thing. I need to decide on what platform I want to use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then how am I going to post it? How often am I going to do it? When am I going to find the time? What am I going to call it? That's great. But something to like get the ball rolling, which has a practical component that feels really big, is, well, decide on a topic that you're passionate about and record yourself having a podcast and sharing that with the world. Don't worry about the title, the name, come up with something and just take an action. You might not even post that podcast, but the fact that you've taken an action and you've broken that inertia in your system, you're going to be able to do it again and again and again and build momentum with that, because it's going to be easier. The more times you do tough things, the easier it gets in your system.
It's also having a level of boundaries and an understanding of what you're saying yes and no to, because you're always saying yes or no to something. It just depends. So, you know, sometimes you might be saying, and this is why having a focus and having a vision board and having ideas of what your goals are and the things that you want to achieve is because you're either saying yes to your dreams or saying no to them. And so this is why boundaries with things are so important and so helpful with things, because when I think about, as an example, like I said, my small goal was to become fit and healthy and strong. So me saying yes to going out to restaurants all the time and eating really fatty and greasy foods all the time is me saying no to my body. And me saying no to that goal. Me saying yes to rather saying to friends, oh, why don't we do a morning workout class together and do a walk on the beach or something. That is a way that I can say yes to my body and still spend time with people that I love. And it's just about seeing things and shifting it in a different way.
So there'd be two practical components to
Yeah,
this. One
sure.
would be your environment.
100%.
Let's say you struggle, getting things done if you're sitting in the living room and you're working from home. Have a dedicated space which is just focused on work. So if you don't have a space like that, or that place is cluttered, maybe move the room around. Get a couple of things that you can start anchoring in there as you start these new habits, like a scent or a smell.
Or go to a coffee shop that you always feel
Yes.
inspired by and that makes you feel productive.
And only take things that are connected to this massive outcome that you're wanting to move towards.
Yep.
So let's say you need to brainstorm. Don't take the laptop with. If you don't trust yourself, or I wouldn't even take my cell phone with. Go to the coffee shop, sit there with a pen and paper and start brainstorming. Like, get things on paper. Allow yourself to be creative. Have a good cup of coffee. Watch people. If you're zoned out for those moments, you're watching people. There's energy, there's movement, there's life. That creates a lot of inspiration. So I typically do that myself fairly often, just to break out of my environment, and that's more for creativity and just to create some space from where I typically work, and then I feel refreshed. Or I'd go to the beach, for example. Another very simple practice, which I'm sure many people listening have heard of, which is just time blocking and allocating time for specific things. So now it's not a thing of I have to achieve this specific goal at the end of the day. It's I'm allocating 30 minutes or an hour of my time doing this task, and when that time is up, I stop doing that task and I move on to something else. So you can use your calendar as a way to ensure that you do have time allocated for these activities. I find that this does work really well, although the discipline component is every week you may have to sit and map out your calendar on a Sunday for like 15, 20 minutes on like where you need to allocate your attention and time during the following week.
Here's the thing with getting what you want and creating the life that you want. It's either you need to find a way to increase your pleasure threshold, which is focusing on the things that feel good to you and building on that momentum, or increasing your ability to handle where you are and endure the pain. And so it's essentially breaking that habit of being yourself and breaking the habit of being in that space of stagnation. And so for a lot of people, it's easier to disrupt that pattern by bringing in more uncomfortable things like doing an ice bath, or instead of doing the things that feel good to you, because I don't know why on some level majority of us are masochists, but it just depends on which end of the spectrum you are, but just finding ways to disrupt that pattern within yourself is going to be a massive game changer. And I wish that I knew that actually in the beginning, because then I would look at where I'm on that spectrum and how receptive I am to those practices on there, because you're not always going to feel good. You are allowed to have bad days, but a bad day doesn't have to equal a bad life or a bad week or a bad month.
And you're not a bad person.
No. So breaking that habit, disrupting the pattern, it's practices, it's practical things to help you step out of those things so that you can you can refocus and realign and bring yourself back into that space. And this is why it's important to do that, especially at the last leg of the year. And so with the last one, it brings us to that, which is number 5, gratitude and emotional momentum, and being in that vortex of feeling good. When moving through these final months, it's about tapping into that. it's about tapping into that emotion of gratitude and deeply feeling that on a cellular level, because it's not just about, this is not just going to elevate your energy, but it's also going to attract more of that, more of the positive outcomes. And
So by just making a daily practice of writing down and reflecting on at least 3 things that you're grateful for, and maybe grateful can be substituted for appreciation. You can appreciate the experience and the people, whatever that may be. You're bringing yourself into a space of like just openness and alignment, because you're maintaining this high vibrations. But really important, when you write it down, that's not the magical part. The magical part is really feeling and tuning into those moments, those people, and feeling that in your system. It doesn't help that you just write it down and you tick off this to-do list and like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this. I need to feel and experience the gratitude in my body, become accustomed to feeling gratitude.
at the end of the day, reviewing what went well and what actions helped you more, it helps you get closer to what your goals are. And this is the thing that builds that momentum. And helps you feel like you're in that vortex of feeling good, like Abraham Hicks also teaches. And in closing, if you feel that you have missed the boat or that you haven't achieved the things that you have planned, the important thing is reminding yourself that every day is a new opportunity and a fresh start. And real growth only happens when you release that pressure of needing to catch up instead of actually shifting into that inspired action. And every small aligned step that you take in these next few months, these are the things that are going to lead these massive, massive shifts into your life.
Ultimately, it ends up being about balancing your emotional well-being and having the practical action and the energetic alignment. Once you've got those 3 things in place, you'll find that you've got time and you do have this innate power, and I'd even say wisdom, that allows you to make a big impact in the final weeks of the year. And to be honest, this is just such a simple reflective practice that you can do after the first quarter of the year or mid-year or now at this point. But just having these tools in play and consistently following through, you'll notice a massive shift. So just to do a bit of a recap on the practical steps, the first one was reflect and realign. The next one was essentially embracing the power of now, being present. The third was visualizing success and taking energetic action. The fourth is eliminating distractions and focusing on impact. And the last one is gratitude, appreciation, and maintaining emotional momentum. The hardest part about implementing all these 5 steps is just giving yourself permission to start, to change, to having the courage to revisit some of those things that you may have not achieved or felt that it was essentially possible, like you didn't necessarily believe it. And I invite you to sit and to explore this. Like take a week and go through this and really come up with a clear game plan and start incorporating these small practices in a day-to-day basis, and just notice the feeling, the change in feeling that your life starts to take on. And as always, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and to explore and to get deeply curious about yourself, and the fact that you're wanting to end the year off on a better note with having ticked off some of those boxes or refining your goals or the next big steps that you're wanting to take. I think that's absolutely incredible, and I commend you for wanting to do better. And if you're looking for more resources, you can check out our blog. We also have our 5-part workshop, which is completely free. That's on our website. And if you're really wanting to level up, check out our private coaching, where we combine cutting-edge neuroscience, practical strategies, and supportive insights from human design, life experience, and neurolinguistic programming to help you unlock your full potential and create lasting change, be it in your life, your relationships, or your business. Until next time, you have the power to make the shift. Go do it.